This is Diamond D with where I'm giving you some love advice, some happiness advice, some everyday good advice to make your day a little more loving. Hi, this is Diamond D with Love and Happiness, where I'm giving you some love advice, some happiness advice, some everyday good advice to make your day a little more loving. Our guest today is Dr. Orlando Dowdy. Dr. Dowdy received his doctorate in ministries from the Graduate Theological Foundation and his master's of divinity from Duke University. He currently serves as pastoral counselor at Dowdy Psychotherapy in Durham, North Carolina, and he is the pastor of Holland Chapel AME Zion Church. He is a clinically trained and board certified practicing psychotherapist and pastoral counselor. He is trained in critical incident stress management, Stepping Stones Triple P Positive Parenting Solutions Level 4, psychodynamic, cognitive behavioral therapy, and clinical hypnosis. He works with individuals, couples, and families in therapy. Dr. Dowdy states that helping people is his passion and believes everyone should live distressed. Thank you, Dr. Dowdy, for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about how you found your calling and your passion in not only preaching, but being a psychiatrist.
Well, I'm not a psychiatrist. I am a psychotherapist. Psychiatrist is a medical doctor and who prescribes medication. I don't prescribe any medication. I found my calling really, I started off first in the military and in law enforcement. I retired from the Army National Guard. And in law enforcement, I realized as a Christian, I was actually ministering to people. I went to a house that really was not a law enforcement call, and I could tell the family were Christians by what they had on the wall, and the father was retired Navy. And I just asked God to say, help me with this. And I took the young man out the house. You know, the father was complaining about him playing heavy metal music. You know, he had the typical long hair. And I thought nothing of it. I thought I had totally failed. And so about 6 months later, I saw the father in the law enforcement center coming out of the magistrate's office. And I recognized him, and he stopped me. He said, I don't know what you said to my son, but he said he was a perfect son for about 6 months. And I thought I had failed. And then I found myself, as I was taking some of these same young black men, young boys, back and forth in my patrol car, I'm trying to say something, do something that would help them and to save them. Some eventually were killed, some went to prison. I still to this day don't know if I had any effect on them. And so from there, when I got my call to preach and knew I wanted to return to school and get my master's of divinity, I got accepted to Duke. I resigned from the police department. And as a pastor, I'm able to see people and counsel with them. But I had some counseling courses at Duke, and I really liked them. And so kind of as a natural progression, I realized that I could go deeper with people in a much more sustaining manner as a therapist. And so I went on and got my doctorate in counseling. And so I don't see parishioners any more than 3 times. I refer them out, and not to myself, but to someone else. So that's kind of the progression for me.
So why do you choose to operate your practice in that fashion where you see people for three sessions and then you refer them to another counselor?
Well, for one, it's because of the time and the commitment. As a pastor, I have a lot of duties, a lot of commitments, and it takes time and it takes effort to actually do professional counseling with people. And I can utilize some of those skills with the people that I see, but when I have a number of people that I serve, I just don't have that time to commit with them beyond 3 sessions.
Understandably so. Let's talk a little bit about your work with the church and the outreach efforts that your church is embarking upon, either pre-COVID or during COVID.
Well, pre-COVID, we were pretty busy. We had, rest home ministries. We had not, well, have, but, rest home ministries going by the food shelter, helping to serve food with the people there. We did have a prison ministry. We trying to think of some of the other ministries that we had. Also ministries for the children, for the youth, reaching out to them. But since COVID, not having contact with people, it's been really scaled back, and all for safety concerns, particularly when we have older people who are in the congregation.
I see. I see. So I know you mentioned about your practice, and you have a hypnotherapy section of your practice. So can you tell me a little bit about the differences between hypnosis, hypnotherapy, and meditation?
Hypnosis and hypnotherapy are interchangeable words. They're the same thing. Meditation, I'll get back to hypnosis and hypnotherapy, but meditation is being able to relax, taking deep breaths, being able to quiet your mind if you can, being able to focus, and to help yourself to de-stress. And you can do that on your own. You can learn how to do it. Whereas with hypnosis or hypnotherapy, one, you can learn how to self-hypnotize, but most people will see someone who is a trained clinical hypnotist, not a stage or entertainment hypnotist where, they have people who are barking and acting like monkeys and, strange types of things. That's not what clinical hypnotists do. There's a procedure, a way of doing it, and part of it is relaxation, getting the person to relax, relaxing their muscles and getting them into a hypnotic trance. And then in the trance, you're right on the cusp of unconsciousness and sleep. You don't want them to fall asleep. I'll let them know in advance if I feel like you're asleep. I'll just kind of gently tap them on the arm or the knee or something, kind of wake them up. Yeah, absolutely. And what I work on is what they want to work on. And I really can't make them do something they don't want to do. For instance, I had someone that wanted to stop smoking, but he was having trouble. And so while he was under, I asked him what we call ideomotor signal. I said, if you want to stop smoking, raise one particular finger. If you don't want to stop smoking, raise your index finger. And the index finger slowly raised it up, which meant he really did not want to stop smoking. Mm-hmm. So helping people to achieve what they want to achieve. And the mind loves metaphor for whatever reason. And so there's lots of illustrations, lots of metaphor. And people typically remember those, but they want to have some academic achievement. They want to stop, let's say, having anxiety or whatever it is that they're working on, self-esteem, raise their self-esteem. So those are just, a few examples of what hypnosis can do.
So if hypnosis only works if the individual wants it to work or wants to stop the behavior they're going into the initial hypnotism for, what are the benefits of hypnotism? Because if a person doesn't really want to stop smoking, like in your example, what would be the advantage of even being hypnotized in the first place?
Well, I don't know if he consciously knew that, but hypnotism gets a person to an unconscious level. And unconsciously, he was able to own up to it, that he really didn't want to stop smoking. And so if a person consciously and unconsciously wants to do something, then hypnosis can be of great benefit to you.
Mhm, mhm,
And some people don't realize that they are hypnotizable. Typically, you have people that are easily suggestible, some that are at the medium level, and some that are difficult level. I've had people come in and say that they're really tense and really doubted that they couldn't be hypnotized, but I haven't had anyone come in that I could not hypnotize. Um, and a good part of it is
mhm,
trust and relaxation, which goes a long ways in life. You can look at it as trusting God, relaxing with God, walking with God. And when we can't do that, we have anxiety, we have doubts. And what have found from this line of work, I have found it in the Bible. I'm like, Jesus said that. Jesus did that. This is nothing new. This is actually in the Bible. We have just found a way to categorize it and to make it more technical, but it's biblical.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
That is so true. I mean, it's nothing new under the sun. So I totally agree with you on that. But in regards to hypnotism, what would you say is your biggest success story? Someone coming to you and maybe saying, I need to exercise more, or I need to be more conscious of what I eat to lose weight. What would be your biggest success story in terms of your clientele being hypnotized, being able to say, this is what I want to stop, or this is what I'm want to start doing, and then ultimately achieving that goal?
Well, I didn't have anyone that I can remember that said they wanted to stop eating or lose weight, but as far as self-esteem or behaviors, um, and it took some sessions for some. It's not necessarily a one session type deal, but they would come in and we talk. Part of it though is this: I don't do it outside of regular sessions. I have to get to know them, to know who they are, what their struggles are, what they're going through. And so typically we have a session, and then at the end of the session, hypnosis session, which normally takes about 20 minutes. And so based upon me knowing them, I can construct a session to actually deal with what they're going through. And typically they say that, it was helpful, and that as time goes on, it helps them um, achieve their goals. And so, feeling better about themselves, walking taller, um, being able to deal with negativity and turn it around and find a positive way to deal with life.
Fascinating, very interesting, very interesting. So I know that you mentioned the Bible, and I want to talk about the love story of Rachel and Jacob in the Bible.
Mhm.
And first, you have to give people the foundation of the story because not everybody is aware of the story. And then, what can we extrapolate from that love story from a singles person's perspective and even a marital perspective? So, love lessons from Rachel and Jacob.
Well, Rachel and Jacob, um, Rachel was one who had Jacob loved, but was not someone who he could have right away because of her sister Leah. The father wanted um, Leah to be his wife. And the father really kind of reneged and made Jacob really wait um, for Rachel. And he was patient. He didn't like it, but he was really patient, waiting on the one whom he really loved. And so some years went by. And so I think that when we start looking at what happened with that relationship, if you really love someone, how long are you willing to wait? How long are you willing to stick around? Or do you throw a tantrum? Do you, cuss the father out? What happens in those type relationships? And so eventually he's able to, have his wife, have his woman, and the two of them kind of, go off into the sunset together. But we find some deception, we find some lies that go on um, with what was told to Jacob. And it's hard. It's hard. And we need to take a look at what happens when people lie to us, when we are deceived about certain things, about um, even in relationships, when we look at the past of people, when we didn't realize, oh, I didn't know you had that kind of a lifestyle, or, huh, really? Or people are not necessarily who they say they are, but they have changed. That's a little, I'm going just a tad away from what happened with Jacob and Rachel. But if they have changed, do you really love them? Or do you love the image of them? Do you love your own self-contrived image of them? Have you created an image that you want to marry or be with? Or do you really love the person, um, the person that you met?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that for me and my perspective of Rachel and Jacob is the fact that you said was right about the patience. I feel that embarking on any new relationship, you have to exercise some degree of patience and self-control, which Jacob did exceptionally well.
You did.
And I hear you in terms of how the betrayal and the lies can taint a relationship. But even in the lies that was told to Jacob initially, he was still able to prevail and come out ahead with being sort of doubly blessed with two wives as opposed to one. But excellent. I agree with your analysis and agree with how we can apply that in our today life, even though that was something that took place thousands and thousands of years ago. What do you think about the Rebecca and the Isaac story, the love story?
Um, I'll actually have to refresh my memory on Rebecca and Isaac. Um,
That's the one where Isaac's dad sent uh, a, I think, a butler or servant to find a mate for Isaac after his dad's mom, well, Isaac's mom passed away. So that was the gist of it. I
yeah,
really like that story because I felt like the way that they met or the way that the butler found Rebecca was very genuine and sincere in that he was very much observant of the ladies that passed his path and sort of used God and prayer in trying to find the perfect wife for Isaac. So that was one of my favorite love stories from the Bible. But I just wanted to get your perspective of that. So I know nowadays people sometimes live together for long periods of time before deciding to commit in a marital relationship. What do you think about people who live together for maybe 3, 4, 5 years and then finally get married and then end up getting a divorce?
well, the first part is very common where people live together for a few years. And then there's something about getting married. What happens? What changes?
Mm-hmm.
A ceremony takes place, whether it's the justice of the peace, you go to Vegas, whether it's a big wedding, and then there is the legal documents, the marriage license, and then they get a divorce. And it kind of ties in with commitment too. But that's a real strange phenomenon. One of the things that happens, as long as they are not married, they feel free. They feel like they can jet at any time. I'm fed up, I'm gone. And particularly when they haven't been together, and I think this may be in your field, long enough to be what law calls common law husband or common law wife. And so, they have this sense of freedom. But then when they get married, they feel like they're stuck, you know. And what used to bother them or irritate them to a smaller degree now goes from a molehill to a mountain, and they don't do anything about it. They just increase the arguing, the blaming, um, the abuse, the verbal fighting, and they don't, like I said, they don't seek help, and then they wind up divorcing. So that has been my experience with people that live together for a period of time, get married, and shortly thereafter they divorce.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a sad situation. Anytime you're divorcing, either from years of living together, cohabitating, or just divorcing because it's just the divorce that takes place. So
Yeah.
anytime we're dealing with that, it's always heart-wrenching, a financial strain, and it's always a difficult situation.
Mm-hmm.
But you're blessed in the sense that you work in counseling, so you get a lot of, I would imagine, a lot of premarital counseling. Do you do that, and how long does that normally take in your practice?
I do premarital counseling. Um, Typically, my foundation is 3 sessions. However, it can take more than 3 sessions depending upon what's going on. I have had a few premarital counseling sessions that wound up turning into just regular counseling. I've had some that go, 5 or 6 sessions. And therapists and pastors are different. Some have a minimum of 6 sessions. Some have books that they use. Um, so it just depends upon what we're able to get through. But I've done it long enough. I've been doing it for about 25 years that I have a format. And so, yeah, 3 as a minimum works for me.
I think that's very good, 3 as a minimum, because I've heard of premarital counseling where it was only an hour. It was done during lunch. The the pastor did premarital counseling over their lunch break, and then of course he was the same pastor that ended up marrying them. But yeah, so 3 sessions is good compared to 1 hour of premarital counseling, which some people do.
If I may, let me say this very quickly. One of the things I always let the couple know premarital counseling is whoever, whatever, not whatever, but whoever they have in front of them is who they're marrying. Because I have them list out the faults as well as the positive traits. And that when they agree to marry, they're accepting the faults as well, not going into the relationship expecting to change the individual. Yeah.
Good deal. So I know that you do work with Stepping Stones Triple P Positive Parenting Solutions Level 4. What is that? That's a mouthful.
Yeah. That's actually the highest level. Um, the next level, level 5, is really the highest level, but that's when people actually come in to see someone like me, come in to see a therapist. Actually working with young children and working with those who may have disabilities, but working with parents, their evaluations, their tests, the times when you can go into the home to observe them. And this is a worldwide program. It's not just here in the United States, but it's worldwide. And level 1 and level 2 may have, like level 1 may have, I think, 1 session. Level 2 may have several sessions. Level 4 has 10. And evaluating the parents, evaluating the child, teaching them how to deal with the child with certain behaviors, like how to do a timeout. When is it time for a timeout? What does a timeout look like? Like the child is autistic, and when their behaviors are not working, and sometimes the parents need counseling, and we have to be able to know how much we can actually do um, without the parents actually going to counseling. And so there's actually a coordinator here in Durham. So yeah.
Interesting, very interesting. Now, do you work with anger management skills with the kids? Because I think that sometimes, and it's a totally a lay person's perspective. A lot of times, problems with children, misbehaviors, it comes down with anger management or being able to express and communicate their feelings freely. What are some tactics of anger management do you provide your teenagers, your young adults that you counsel?
Well, first of all, helping them to learn how to communicate, helping them to be in touch with their feelings, recognizing what's going on. Sometimes you get angry because you're hungry. You get angry because you're feeling alone. You get angry because you're tired. Helping them to recognize, what's happening with them. To be in touch with signals that are coming from the body. A lot of what happens to us doesn't just happen in the brain. It happens to us with the body, somatically. Are you feeling something happen in your stomach? You feeling distressed in your stomach? Is that a signal for you? Do you push on? Do you pursue when you should be backing down? Do you feel heart palpitations? Do you feel something in your throat? And when you feel that, what do you do? How do you cope with that? And sometimes they really should be backing down and calming down instead of pushing forward. Being alert to those signals can be very helpful. Just teaching them, like I said, there are acronyms for certain things that they can do, some signals that they can do, helping them to learn to communicate and to talk about what's going on, learning how to do a proper timeout when they're getting upset so that, the anger doesn't come out, but learn to come back and talk about it later. So there are a number of techniques and coping mechanisms we can use.
Good deal. Good deal. How can people contact you, Dr. Dowdy?
Well, they can go to my website, dowdypsychotherapy.com, or they can contact me at this telephone number, 919-975-5892, 919-975-5892. Typically, if you just do a search for my name, it comes up.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the show today. And for my viewers, let me leave you with this quote from Shakespeare that says, "The meaning of life is to find your gift, but the purpose of life is to give it away." This is Diamond D with Love and Happiness, reminding you that God loves you.